campaign, the nation's largest nonpartisan voter mobilization effort, powered by hip-hop, has educated and empowered millions of young voters to use electoral power to demand clean energy policies and hold politicians accountable. The fusion of cultural strategy and advocacy has not only shifted public opinion, but also influenced policy decisions, showcasing the power of grassroots organizing, combined with thoughtful storytelling. Throughout our history, Hip Hop Caucus has built a robust network of artists, activists, and community leaders dedicated to climate justice. Our impact extends beyond campaigns. It has shaped the national dialogue on environmental racism, uplifted the importance of a just transition to a clean energy future, and positioned itself in the intersection of climate. Bringing this initiatives empower artists to use their creative talent for action to environmental movement. Caucus continues to demonstrate that the fight against climate change is also a fight for justice, equity, and human rights. As Hip Hop Caucus moves into our next chapter, we remain committed to building power within BIPOC communities and ensuring that our voices are at the forefront of the climate movement. Today, I want to talk about our theory of change that I'm always asked about at Hip Hop Caucus. Why we believe that our campaigns and advocacy work must be combined with culturally relevant narratives and storytelling. Because if we are going to tackle the critical issues facing our communities, we must do so with every tool at our disposal. And that includes the power of our voices, our stories, and our culture. So first and foremost, we are unwavering in our commitment to stop fossil fuel expansion. This means not just opposing the development of new infrastructure, like petrochemical plants and liquefied natural gas facilities, but also challenging the continued operation of existing ones that have long plagued our communities. For too long, these industries have treated our neighborhoods as sacrifice zones, releasing toxic emissions that drive up cancer rates, exacerbate respiratory illnesses, and cause untold suffering among our people. Our advocacy and organizing are essential, but changing the narrative is equally critical. We must elevate the voices and the stories of those who endure the daily impact in these facilities, bring to light the devastating human cost of our fuel dependency. By combining the power of grassroots action with compelling storytelling, we can shift public perception, build a broader support base, and press policymakers to take a stand alongside us in this fight. Second, we are pushing for an equitable climate investments through the Inflation Reduction Act and Justice 40, ensuring that 40% of federal climate spending really reaches frontline and BIPOC communities. This is about more than just funding. It's about righting historical wrongs and ensuring that those most affected by environmental harm are at the forefront of the solutions. But policy alone isn't enough. We must connect these investments to the lived experiences of our communities, showcasing how this funding can rebuild neighborhoods, create jobs, and improve lives. Our stories can make these investments real, tangible, and urgent. Let me be clear. 40% is the floor, and a mere baseline is what is required to restore our communities. So as we fight to make it real, we must also fight for the future investments that will build on this once-in-a-generation promise. We're also tackling the issue of vehicle emissions, which disproportionately affects our communities through the scourge of asthma and respiratory issues. We must confront the reality that these emissions are not just an environmental issue. They are a glaring injustice, disproportionately choking BIPOC communities with toxic air, driving up rates of asthma, heart disease, and perpetuating a cycle of health inequity that we can no longer ignore. So our work involves engaging in regulatory conversations and promoting inclusive infrastructure for electric vehicles. We're advocating for clean air and healthier streets. We're also working to make sure that the transition to a clean vehicle storytelling the voices of youth activists, local leaders, and community members who are demanding better for their neighborhoods. We can make the case that clean air is a right, not a privilege. Clean water and air are fundamental human rights, yet too many of our communities are denied access to these basic needs. At Hip Hop Caucus, we fight daily to protect the water and air we drink, focusing on communities connected to U.S. fisheries, watersheds, and sacred lands. Again, I must emphasize that this is more than an environmental issue. It's about health, dignity, and survival. We use our platforms to tell the stories of those fighting for clean water for generations. And we work to lift their struggles and victories as part of a larger justice movement. Lastly, we are committed to expanding urban green spaces in high-need areas. In South Los Angeles, we've worked with local groups to highlight promising projects like the Sankofa Park, the same name as this conference and theme, that promise to bring the benefits of greening and restoring our natural environment to communities in ways that don't lead to gentrification and displacement. Stories we capture highlight the work of the neighborhoods, universities, activists, and they are coming together to make this vision, which is being piloted in 4 other cities around the country, has the potential to model what can become a national example. These spaces aren't just parks, but places of healing, community, and resilience. For too long, BIPOC neighborhoods, Black neighborhoods, have been concrete jungles, lacking the trees and green spaces that make cities livable. By advocating for urban green spaces, we're advocating for the well-being of our communities. Through culturally relevant storytelling, we can show how these spaces transform lives, providing natural protections, improving mental health, and creating a sense of community. If the Supreme Court is poised to overturn long-standing legal precedents that have protected our environment for decades, such as those enshrined in the Clean Air Act, Clean Water Act, and other critical environmental laws, it's clear that we need to take measures to ensure our communities know what's at stake. The rollback of these protections threatens the health and safety of millions, especially in frontline and BIPOC communities that already bear the brunt of environmental harm. We cannot rely on outdated rulings or a court prioritizing corporate interests over public welfare and our people. Instead, we must push for bold legislative measures reinforcing our right to clean air, safe drinking water, and a livable climate. It's time to mobilize and organize and demand that our decision makers step up to fill the gaps left by the courts and safeguard our planet for future generations. The Hip Hop Caucus believes that we cannot fight these battles alone. We must bring our culture, creativity, and collective power to the movement's forefront. Our stories have the power to change hearts and minds, mobilize action, and to hold those in power accountable. By combining our campaigns and advocacy with culturally relevant narratives, we are not just asking for change. We are demanding it. And we are showing the world that a just and sustainable future is possible. Thank you for all that you have done. Thank you for not giving up the fight on your community. And thank you for standing with us, listening to our stories, bringing your own story, and joining us in this fight for climate justice. Together, and I do mean together, we can and will make a difference. All power to the people. Said that the role of the artist is to make the revolution irresistible. Storytelling is critical, and it literally is making sure that the voices of our people are heard. And by using their Pacific culture, their music, their dance, their art, their painting, every aspect of their lives, then we are allowing their story to be told in a very authentic way. There are many ways to do that. Obviously, we now are blessed with these amazing devices that we have called either iPhones or phones, whatever version you may have. But in that, we're able to capture these stories, and in capturing these stories, to then reproduce them. Now, for us at Hip Hop Caucus, we have been very blessed to do this on a very high level. So we're now doing documentaries, which are important. We're doing podcasts. We were up for 2 NAACP Image Awards this year, which I will say in the remembrance of the amazing Frankie Beverly. He received a Lifetime Achievement Award during that Image Award ceremony. But I would also say we've done numerous things like music. The key thing to that, I want to just kind of highlight the film that I mentioned earlier, Underwater Projects, which will be officially premiere during Climate Week, and you can check out more of those things at hiphopcaucus.org. We showed that film at a film festival in Martha's Vineyard. The film is about Norfolk, Hampton Roads region, and about the flooding that is taking place there, and the possibility if they were to receive a Category 2, which literally is happening in my home state of Louisiana right now with Hurricane Francine, that in that process, they would have devastating impacts. We're very blessed to have Wanda Sykes tell that story in her way. The reason I bring this up, though, is for this reason. When we showed that film, it pretty much has a 90% Black, brown, indigenous cast, including Wanda Sykes. When we showed the film at the Martha's Vineyard Film Festival, some of our brothers and sisters of a lighter hue begin to become visibly upset or concerned. And they were visibly upset or concerned during the Q&A because for many years, they have only seen Black, brown, and indigenous people in the role of brunt of the climate crisis. And I believe, unfortunately, these many of our brothers and sisters now of a lighter hue, unfortunately, have begun this type of trauma porn in which they are looking to see Black, brown, indigenous people suffering, dying from cancer, asthma, and emphysema before their eyes. So they were shocked to see a movie that was obviously directed by Black people, focused on Black people, telling Black and brown and indigenous stories. That was both the problem and the solution. So in that storytelling, they literally were transformed not to be the ones to fix the problem, but to know that there were other solutions besides and outside of themselves. So it's interesting. So that in storytelling, it is not only a matter of this telling the story, but it is the ability to ensure that we own the story. And so I would just say that to you, that as you are doing that, as you're just capturing whatever content you can in your communities, and you're allowing for their voices to be heard, and you're posting it up on your social media, that hopefully groups like Hip Hop Caucus and others can help amplify that. And I would also encourage the larger environmental organizations, instead of just posting our people, my people, drowning, dying, living in Cancer Alley, which is where I'm not too far from. But post the stories of what you see here with Dr. B. Wilson, post the stories of us gathering, post the stories of us doing what we can do to achieve, post the stories. Because an interesting thing will happen. You will no longer thought that Justice 40 is an idea, but it's becoming obvious. Move forward. Our story, and I hope that answers the questions.
Good morning. I'm Juan de Guevara with the Union of Concerned Scientists. Reverend, I was struck by everything you said, but in particular, I was struck with your notion of flipping the script in highlighting the benefits of things that can help with inequities, to address inequities related to heat. It's an issue very dear to my heart. I've done most of my research as a social scientist and a geographer on urban heat islands and heat inequities. And in the way that we have been trained as scientists, we typically we take those facts that we're talking about and we focus on the negative. We focus on all the risk factors that make it more likely for people to die or end up in the hospital for an extreme heat. Those risk factors about being a person of color, poverty, not having an AC, housing, and so on. What would you say to a scientist such as myself who partners routinely with EJ and CJ communities to help flip that script, to collaborate, to focus on the things that make the communities thrive instead of just focusing on that trauma pornography that you described just now, to help move forward to solutions?
That's a very important question. That actually, research is a form of storytelling. And that's why I have many conversations with Dr. Wilson, and many of you others in the room I talk with frequently. And I am struck again how our genius and our ways in the academy is overlooked, and sometimes on purpose and underfunded, and some, again, on purpose. So one of the things there in regards to that is that research is something that's very important to crafting and telling a story. We have to know literally what's happening. There was some research that was done recently, again in my home state of Louisiana, that looked at that the air quality was 9 times higher, worse than we had proceeded. And that was research. We're not acting also help us break bridges down so that people can that they're just ideas, Levine or Shada or others, or Wright. Many of you know Dr. Wright. That's called. He didn't tell everybody the story. He was my. She literally raised me. She'll tell the story how she my diaper. Keep. Dr. Beverly Wright for always telling that story. But the thing, though, is that I do think that I want to talk more about the funding of the research, if I can. And this is something that I talk about a lot. The 12 largest environmental foundations that support advocacy and research gave out $1.3 billion. Out of that $1.3 billion, only 1.3% went to EJ groups and groups that are led by Black and Brown and Indigenous people. One of the things there is that in my speech, I talk about Justice 40, but within philanthropy, that actually helps to move the ball and needle on research. Literally 98% of the money is not going to Black, Brown, and Indigenous people. It is impossible to tell your story if you don't have the resources, because then you're in a quagmire. If you are forced to only tell the story of those who are funding you, you are now in a position of he who funds you is he who controls you. So now you're in this strange position where your research needs to align back to that kind of trauma porn, or tell that type of story that only highlights the community suffering and dying, and not being successful, not being the ones who can actually go to and be the beacons, and not being the ones who can be the solutionaries to fixing the problems for their community. if you're only getting 1% of the resources, it isn't just the big green problem, which we always talk about, which is part of the problem because they're also egging out small EJ groups. But it is a bigger problem when 98% of the resources going to entities. God bless Johns Hopkins, God bless University of Maryland, but I do think that the proponents going to that they must share resources, Black, Brown, and Indigenous research, and also how research in our community may not look like they do research through some institutions. It is still respected how we in our community. That is the if we can somehow have a movement that is truly equity-based and delivering resources that empowers all of us, then this issue of climate crisis only getting a few lines at a debate will cease, because then more people will understand the harms that we're going through of not having clean air, not having clean water, and the need to transition from fossil fuels to clean energy.
Now, I'm not gonna say much because you set me teeing me up for the lunchtime plenary, so I'm gonna hold it in. But I start talking about pain pimping and extractive science and vulture science over here, Rev. Let me calm down though. Another question. I'm gonna say that for the lunch. Another question. Yes, go ahead. Say your name and organization, please.
Chad Martin, North Carolina Black Alliance, also a Siege Fellow, and I'm walking over here for the next question. Just wanted to ask this question. I think it was Dr. Cornel West said, "I'm not a pessimist nor an optimist, but a prisoner of hope." Talk to me about the younger generation that's saying, "I don't want to have kids because of climate change, climate anxiety." Dr. Beverly Wright yesterday talked about the issues in Louisiana. We just saw what they just did with the Louisiana case, saying you can no longer use, race as, putting industry inside of places. Everything that's going on in Cancer Alley. Last year was the 40th anniversary of Warren County, the birth of environmental justice. I'm in there in Raleigh seeing Secretary Regan, Ben Chavis, and then thinking, oh my God, I'm happy that all these people are here, but we're still having to fight this same issue of litter in Greensboro. The same issues still going on. Talk to me about a young person saying, you know what, I'm not going to have no kids anymore. The climate issue is just way too big. You're a Rev, so you're all about faith and hope. Talk to me about that.
I am all about faith and hope. Even for the Rev, it gets tough sometimes. Don't think there are good days and bad days, depending on how the news cycle goes. That's an important question, because I kind of want to speak to that more so from the standpoint that I know this is being recorded, and I want to speak more to the young people who are in the movement. The realities of the climate crisis are real. Let me state that we are in a climate crisis. Phoenix, I think, just may have stopped. They had one of the longest cycles of 100-day weather continuously. In Las Vegas, the temperatures had reached close to over 125 degrees. The pavement was 160 degrees. It was so bad, unfortunately, that people were dying on the sidewalks. In the rural areas, West Virginia, Montana, Idaho, their 911 systems were crashing because they don't have the same air conditioning system. And seniors, not only white people, were calling 911 because the heat was impact. We saw what happened where the sisters were their privilege to black. We have the impacts of our sisters, brothers, and the cousins, reservations. We have seen the impact of the fires right now. There's a hurricane right now in our home in Louisiana. So we are in the midst of a climate crisis. So it is daunting, and it is very difficult to understand that either you shape policy or policy shapes you. And it's very daunting to tell anybody who's a young person, particularly young meaning if you're in your 20s or 30s, relatively speaking, or your teens, that they understand they will be living in this society. If it's bad now in 2024, what will it look like in 2044? And they understand that insurance is almost impossible to get in coastal areas. Certain states, you can't even buy a home certain places anymore. And so they're looking at that reality, and they're simply pleading with older folks to simply make the change that needs to happen while we still can. And when they continue to see people hemming and hawing, being corrupted by the fossil fuel industry on both Democrats and Republicans, selling out to the fossil fuel industry, talking about that fracking somehow has become a good thing, and how we need to return back to liquefied natural gas, understanding that we're in the climate crisis. It is discouraging for any young person to see that kind of hypocrisy. So we understand that. We should understand that that would make anyone to look at their lives very seriously and understand, do they want to be in a situation where they are furthering humanity, where humanity is killing itself? With that being said, and this is where you can learn so much from particularly Black, brown, and indigenous people's struggles, is that we have gone through so much in our fight that when we came here as enslaved people, we did not give up the fight. We found ways, hence using culture. Down by the riverside was not a song about Jesus. It was a roadmap to freedom. It was, I'm outside the plantation, I'm singing on the riverside, and the plantation, oh, look at them old slaves singing tonight. Yeah, okay. Next morning, everybody's gone. And so that was how we put codes in our music. We put codes in our quilts, put a roadmap to the underground. Where we did that, that's what we must now do again. We must put codes in our music and our art and our literacy to ensure that people understand the roadmap. I would say this, the reality of where we are for this generation is different. In the 20th century, we fought for equality. But in the 21st century, we're now fighting for existence. The stakes are much different. But for any young person, I can tell you, from the gay rights movement, the civil rights movement, the women's rights movement, organized people beats organized money every single time. And we ain't never lost that battle. So do not give up hope in the power of the people. Do not give up hope in the power of us uniting together to fight for change. And if you have that kind of hope, and I will say this, have something to pull on outside of yourself. I am a Christian minister. My best friends are Muslim and also Buddhist. But I will say this to whatever your faith is, either agnostic, even atheist, I would say this to you. Find something outside of yourself to pull on. Let it consume you. I'm from the South. Down South, we would say the battle is the Lord's, not yours. And I would just say that that needs to still be our cry today, that we understand that this is a relay race. Our job is to do our best so that one day future generations can look back at this hodgepodge of human look back and say that they fought everyone accountable. I'm not sure that person this whole process. In that process, because they fought in rooms at the University of Maryland, which may not be Maryland 100 years from now, but because they fought, we have clean air and clean water. I don't know, I thank them because they are now all good ancestors. They are no longer with us, but because what they did in 2024, we now live. Let that be your thing that keeps you going. Live your life, enjoy your life, do what you want to do, and make sure that you never give up on humanity.
So this is going to be our last question. Yeah, say your name and organization, please.
I'm Belladine Crescenzo, reporting on behalf of the Diamondback. And just going back to speaking about the younger generations, I think a big hurdle for a lot of younger kids and a lot of younger students is not feeling like they have a voice or that they're being heard because they are a part of the younger generations, and trying to, bridge the gap between old generations. I think that's something that affects everybody, not generations as well. So what's your advice to the young generation? We kind of covered that a little bit, but feeling like
Yeah, no. This is my last question for tomorrow night. Doors open on your table if you haven't seen Revival. We're having tomorrow that we did with Rashida Oze and Sharon Levine, Penn, Pearson, and looking forward to it. Is all free. You just got to come there on time to get in the door. But also Leslie Odom Jr., where you know from Hamilton. And I wanted to start there because many of y'all might not have known that Leslie Odom Jr. was a climate activist, right? That's the key thing. So a lot of times, there are people in your midst who want to be a part of this movement, but have not been invited. And so you just think that you work with what you got. So to young people, the same thing. I would say when we first did the Hip Hop Caucus, which literally, as of yesterday, it was 20 years ago. Wow, 20 years, Hip Hop Caucus, that's crazy. And when we obviously were putting together our name, it was hip hop, and then we had it of great reverence for the Congressional Black Caucus, hence where the other part, the caucus part came from. The Hip Hop Caucus was all excited. During that time, like right now, the same way the Congressional Black Caucus has started, we thought, as 20 years younger, a little younger, that they wanted to have us. They have at the what we found as youngers was that weren't actually they had Fox News a lot, and then show who was the hip hop who you hate. You get whatever single year. They would compare because of those that they didn't allow us to have. I always and that actually was you and young people. What I was because I was in a mysterious way. If we had got a room, we would have been doing things that today would have been very not as strong against fossil fuels. We will come back later on and hold the Congressional Black Caucus accountable for taking fossil fuel money. We actually were able to get many of them to write letters, other members of Congress, like Barbara Lee, many others, to actually work against that. That actually will become the beginnings of the Stop the Money pipeline. And actually, some of that work will actually lead into our work in Standing Rock. Why I bring that up is this. We then had our first event, because we didn't have any room at the Congressional Black Caucus. We had it at Howard University. It would be our first event. We had it there at Crampton Auditorium. We didn't know who would show up. And what happened was 900 people came to Crampton Auditorium. And that so inspired us then. It has us going right now. And so I would say this, don't always look to be around people who don't want you to be around. And sometimes God has another plan. And maybe the respectability politics ain't for what you need to do in this moment. I'm not saying we didn't have warriors in 1965 or 75 or 85. I appreciate all the things that was done. But maybe it's a time for you to have a new energy that doesn't allow for you to be connected to institutions. Maybe we have to cut the purse or the connection, the umbilical cord from certain institutions so you can be the best you can be. And it's something miraculous. have your own. I actually told many people today, one of the worst things I've actually seen, and I've had to recuperate, help them fix themselves, is that this is particularly for Black, brown, indigenous young people, also in the queer community. They have a tendency to go into big green organizations with the hope of fixing the environment, and they then are so demoralized, are so beaten down, they actually want to quit the movement. So what was an exciting, vibrant young person ready to take on the world was literally crumbled. And I'm also the chair of the board for Green 2.0. And so that's one thing we put out. You can go to that website, Diverse Green, and get some of those. We've done some research on what that means. But that's also the impact. Sometimes you don't need to be where you're not wanted. And God is calling you to a new mission. You have a new situation, that you have new technology, and you are made specifically for this moment. Stop being David. Find your slip and get your life. Thank y'all so much.
There you go. There you go. And a fine shot. The tools ain't for all of them. Y'all know where he said, justice is a relay race. You got to pass the baton. But don't do it like we did. I'm about to say about 100. He said, have grounding. DJ, when y'all was about hope, love, have faith. You know, I'm learning from you, right? So thank you for that. And I know he talked about Dr. Bullard and this lighter hue. This lighter hue. Now, you had me thinking about the complexion for protection and talking about the money. Some folks don't have the complexion for investment. They got the complexion for disinvestment, right? We got to move away from that. So as we move to the rest of the day, I'm going to go back to the slides, AV team. Back to these slides. Y'all can cue those up for me. So we're going to start again with our first block of sessions at 11 o'clock. Thank you. And again, Rev was queuing me up a few minutes ago. I was getting a little excited. So lunchtime plenary is going to be selling out and colonizing the EJ movement. This is an interesting, provocative title. I mean, some guy that y'all know moderating that session. And we're going to open up that session with a couple of slides to ground us in the conversation. And we have Harold Mitchell, my good friend from South Carolina, who I would say real quickly, we were at a Crackle Barrel about University of South Carolina. I was at University of South Carolina. I escaped University of South Carolina. Sorry, South Carolina. Hey, the University of Maryland. But we were at a Crackle Barrel, Harold, in about 2000, maybe 9 or 10. And we were talking, what Rev was talking about research, right? Why research is important, but how making sure that research is done in the same way. He was talking about how some researchers, some academic institutions end up doing extractive science. And we started saying, yeah, they pimp people's pain. And we said, pimping people's pain. So Harold Mitchell and I, that's Harold came with that quote, at a Crackle Barrel, some good chicken, at a Crackle Barrel back in 2009. So you hear me bring that up during this session, pain pimps, right, vultures, extractive science, colonizing science, that's what we're talking about, folks. We got to move away from that. Nigga Wilson, you heard me scared questions about killing me in men's research. Y'all, you heard Reverend talked about you can tell that stories. You don't have to be a scientist. I can use a scientific method. So we're talking about science, science, participant science, community driven solution science. Reverend said in now problem solutionizing. Jesse, don't get the point. Okay? So that's part of the a little bit talk, got production. Part of the session, we're going to get Michigan. And then we have those in plenary efforts to advance environmental climate change, a leak. Quick fact, so you have Rebecca, legislator from Maryland. You have an each first, it's going to be exhibit, a lot of question, and a couple announcements. Change, session 3F, which is going to be at, I think, 3 o'clock. Later today, that's been moved from 2104 to 2115. So again, room change. That session has been moved from 2104 to 2115. So I want to say a few more things before I let y'all take a break and get ready to transition to our first block of sessions that again begin at 11 o'clock. So we have both an in-person audience and a virtual audience. And I think the pandemic, as Reverend said, it was an extinction level event. One of the things that happened during the pandemic, our symposium moved from in-person, of course, to virtual. And now I think many conferences, events are doing this kind of hybrid setup. So I just want to give y'all some numbers about our number of registrants. And it's really exciting for us. On Wednesday, that was totally virtual. We had 1,730 registrants, 1,730 registrants. Today we have 1,400 virtual registrants, 586 in person, 1,363 for Friday, 567 for in person, 949 virtual Saturday, and 495 Saturday in person. So total registrants, we're over about 6,500 registrants. Now, of course, many of those, let's clap for that. So just want to not conflate the numbers. Many of those repeat registrants. So total individuals are less than that. But it's really exciting to see how the symposium has grown. The first symposium, and those of you who were here, and that was in December 2012, we had about 500 people in person at the Stamp Student Union. We had a lot of energy. Many of y'all were in the room that day, right? We've grown a lot since 2012. It's really exciting to see now we can bring the symposium to people around the Mid-Atlantic, around the country, around the world using technologies. Just wanted to share that information with y'all. And it's just great to see everybody here. Those of you are out virtually listening in today, please continue to use the Hoover app to go to your various sessions at 11 o'clock. And those in the room, thank you for being here and sharing this moment. And again, remembering the past, honoring the past, so we can move forward in the future. And have a good rest of the day, y'all. Thank you. And let's give Reverend another round of applause to y'all. Woo!